to the room. A round of applause for all of our panelists. I'm going to start with Gary in the middle, and a simple question. Why radio?
For me, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got a great staff up there. We're going to get you all flipped up, ready to go.
It begins with a passion. My passion for growing up with radio, listening to radio, watching my father grow his business using radio. And then when he sold it, he says, you need to go get a job. And I went to somebody that Chad knows well, and I said, Mark, what exactly do you do that you don't work on weekends? He was a GM. And that's how I ended up in radio. No training. They sat me at a desk with phone books and said, go figure it out, kid. And I did. And it works. And people listen. And people love it. And it's local. It's part of your community. Radio stations, even though we have been consolidated, each individual brand has a meaning to the market. And it has people who passionately love it. Radio works. That is my line always.
I
Radio
love that.
Works.
Chad, why radio?
Well, I agree with him. I think radio absolutely works. I think at the end of the day, we talked a lot about news and news talk and, leaning into certain programming, but I do think every station out there has a purpose. Radio is ubiquitous. It follows you everywhere. It's in your car. It's in your home. You can be listening to the radio and be driving out to figure out what you want for dinner, and all of a sudden hear a Cracker Barrel, commercial, and you're like, all right, let's hit that spot. But it has immediacy. It works from the top of the funnel to the bottom of the funnel, which we don't get enough credit for. And I really do believe that where you see the results is with local direct advertisers more so than anything, because they don't get caught up in the media mix modeling and all the research and attribution. They spend money, they get an ROI, and they return week after week. And I don't think there's any better testament to how radio works than when you look at that type of situation.
John, you work with a lot of clients. You buy a lot of advertising. Your company does a lot of radio. I'll ask you the same question. You didn't grow up in it like these two guys. But look at what happens to them after you've been in radio a long time. But John, from your perspective.
Yeah, I've been buying radio for about 5 years now. And what I think is the most, I came from an agency working in national broadcast TV. And I just think radio is truly the most authentic form of marketing advertising out there. Like Gary said, it's how you're going to connect with your community. You're going to focus on an actual endorser who connects with his or her audience every single day. They tune in for that exact morning show or that exact PM drive show. And it's not interruptive. You're listening while you're driving to work. You're listening when you're coming home. Now you're listening streaming while you're also at work at your desk. While you're working out. It's not interrupting you like a TV ad might, or when you're on social media, you're scrolling. That's really the only thing you're focused on. Whereas when you're in the car or just listening, audio really can hit you without interrupting you at all.
We're at a news conference and talk conference. The next guest is going to talk about a news conference because he held a virtual one this morning and making the top story in the radio industry. And I appreciate Jeff Warshaw's commitment to this industry to say we have a future, a bright future, and I'm investing in it. But that'll be for Jason to deal with. I want to talk about this format, though, and specifically in from the buy side, news, talk, and from the business perspective. And Gary, from the clients, and you deal with a very select group of clients, a large group, but a very select group of clients. When you look at the news talk format, how does that align with the needs and the desires of your clients?
So this is probably not going to be the most popular answer, but it's too old. It's too wealthy. And that's what radio has done for years, talked about news talk or sports. I'm going to use both spoken language formats, where we are serving you better types of consumers. In the area that I'm in, personal injury law, we are looking for 75 and below income. Now, those people need news. They love sports. They want talk. How do we make it more exciting for people to want to tune a station in, whether it's AM or FM? it's available to everybody. So make it cooler, make it hipper. There's a way. It's not all about the content that's being spoken about.
So John, your advertisers and what they look at and desire aligning with this format.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I would say like one of the strongest demos for a news talk, sports talk format is going to be your adults 35, 64, even a bit older. But you are going to struggle when you start to look towards the adults 18 to 25, and your rating numbers will be a little bit lower, which is unfortunate because, like you said, everybody needs their news. Everybody needs to find their way to get their news. But with news talk, those hosts and those audiences that come for those hosts every morning drive, they're habitual listeners. They're going there specifically because they trust that endorser and they trust exactly what they're saying. And for the most part, it should lead towards success in driving stronger results for that client.
Chad, you talk to a lot of advertisers across a broad spectrum. Both Gary and John talk about that connection. I know as a radio listener, I live in Indianapolis, and I'm addicted to a group of 5 guys every morning who talk sports about things that matter to me. And I feel like I'm the 6th person in the room every morning. It's appointment listening. But there is great value in that, is there not?
Tremendous value in that. And, people, really focus on talent more so than the station, right? They identify with a personality. That personality becomes a friend in certain cases. They listen to them daily. They lean in to listen to them. So it is active listening, right? I do believe in that environment you have a much better chance of actually seeing a stronger ROI. I do think there is definitely a more upscale audience when you're talking about news and news talk. I do separate news from news talk as a format. I do think they're different. They're used differently. I think from a news talk perspective, those personalities and those listeners will listen to what they have to say. I mean, you talked about word of mouth earlier. There's no better word of mouth than when you've got somebody on the air talking about your product, believing in your product, and talking about how they use your product. And I think those are the type of things that really generate the ROI that advertisers are looking for. And on a news station, you talk about leaning in, you use it like a utility, right? People come to listen at certain times to where they get news, sports, top of the hour, world news type information, local news. So they know when to come in and when to go out. And if you associate your advertising with the on-air product that makes the most sense, you can see even a bigger return.
Gary.
I was just going to say, the first thing that most people look at in the morning when they wake up is social media. They open up their phone and they go to Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook. Our radio stations across America, in my opinion, are missing out on that younger crowd by taking your local products, your local talent, and support them by doing stuff on social media. Make them more known, make them more compelling than they might actually be. It's marketing. Radio stations individually are not marketing their product to the general public. So they're letting that 18 to 34-year-old sit there and get their news through social media.
John, talk about what the advertisers that you deal with, and again, there's a large number, how they view this format, how they view this medium.
Yeah. At the end of the day, when you're looking at a new media buy that you're working on for a new client, you're going to go through rankers, you're going to go through qualitative information, household incomes, where, all the numbers at the end of the day that you're going to prove out that this is why it should work. But at the end of the day, you could always find that 27th ranked station in the market that has that perfect host, like you said, that is going to connect directly to your audience, that every single morning they're going to talk about the same thing. Like you said, how you listen to your same 5 guys in the morning talk about your sports, you feel like you're one of them. When you actually find someone that connects and buys into what that product or service that you're trying to promote is, that's truly the most valuable thing that you're going to find.
How do we as radio get that message to you to connect to the audience? Like we know, like say you're the 27th ranked station.
Right.
You can sell a lot of product on that 27th ranked station, right? How does radio connect that message back to you to connect to the advertiser?
Wait, say it again. How does it?
How does radio, how do we connect that information to you, because you're the conduit back to the client,
Right.
to get that information to the client, to make that 27th radio station important, because we know we can deliver for your client?
I think it's just proof of it working, showing that the results, a cost per lead type of thing that comes in, showing a sales data that comes in, and just showing proof that it does work, and disregarding the number, disregarding if it's the number 1 ranked news talk station in the market versus the 27th one. It really just factors into proof of something that has been done in the past.
We had an interesting discussion at the bar last night. Gary was in a different shirt at the time, and then I learned this morning walking over from the hotel the story of the shirts. It started with a comment from a significant person in your life who encouraged you to buy a clown shirt, and not just 1, but 9.
Yes.
And now it's become a thing, but it hasn't been a thing forever. You said you used to dress like me. I'm off on a little tangent
I'm up
here,
to
but-
212 of them now.
And this was not a new purchase today.
This is not a new one,
All right,
but
so
it was fitting.
I'm going to ask the same question to you, Gary, to John, and that is that information that flows. You are a radio, you grew up in this industry. You know what success looks like. You know how success is created. But you also have a very focused approach to what you do with your advertisers.
So I don't care if you're ranked 1st or 27th. Every single brand has listeners. Now, whether we believe Nielsen or not is irrelevant, but there are listeners. What is the value of those listeners? So for me, when I go into a market, I want to buy every station in the market. Not 1, not 3, not 5. I'll buy 15 or 18. And we have some real investors out there that are doing this. I don't know, in the line that we're in for personal injury, 2% of the people in America will get in a car accident. Yet personal injury lawyers on a local level is the fastest growing category in radio across America. Yet none of these lawyers ever get attribution from any of the stations, and we do a ton of endorsements across America. And nobody mentions the talent's name when they call. Oh, they don't call. They go online. So where's the attribution? The attribution is at Google. And understand that as you're going out to sell your product, your brand, if they're on one station, you will see some attribution because now it's focused. But when you're doing a radio campaign, and you need to be across multiple places, different genres, the attribution is not going to be given to radio or TV anymore. It is given to Google.
How'd they get there?
Of course, that's what we speak about all day long. If you don't have a brand, you have nothing. Now, again, you're doing a lot of direct response advertisers where you either want the product or you don't. I'm in the business of building legal brands that someday somebody may need you. We just don't know when.
So on the measurement question, which is front and center everywhere, in particular radio and how we're judged against others. By the way, there's some really interesting material at rab.com. One voice, I think it's slide 4, I would direct the attention of the group to. Very proud of that information. But when you walk into a new client, I don't know how many new clients you have because you have a robust group that you represent, setting the level of expectation ahead of time. Walk us through what that conversation's like. It would be interesting for us to know.
So when I sit down with a law firm, their goal is to reach as many people as they can for the smallest dollar investment possible. And I explain to them, if you're on TV now, because look, it's an ego world. They want to see themselves on TV. No different than anybody who sells when a client calls in a radio station, they want to buy the station that they listen to. You would buy the sports station in Indianapolis if you were out there looking. But I say to them, we need to reach everybody. Your investment is not going to pay off for 18 months. And if you are not committed to 18 months of pain, because it is painful, they're investing hundreds of thousands of dollars with no return, then we're not the right fit for you. If somebody uses the word, I want to try radio, great. Try it with somebody else, because we're not going to be a fit for you, because we're committed to it. And if you don't commit to whatever you're doing in life, you're probably not going to succeed.
Chad, can you talk about what your conversations are like on that particular front, on the ROI, on the measurement, expectations?
Yeah.
You have a lot of those every day.
Every day, and talking about Nielsen, I know, I sit on their board there, on their committee. The 3-minute rule was a nice enhancement for us, and as a matter of fact, News Talk saw some of the greatest lifts just based on the way they listen to the radio station. Nielsen is definitely a challenge for everybody these days, with declining revenue and increased costs from Nielsen and lower sample sizes. You still have diaries, which you talk about old school. I mean, that's taking a diary and writing it in. I really try to focus on, and like to the point earlier, 27th station, first station. There's so much more to what you have to look at when you're putting a buy together, and you have to look at it at an individual station level. You have to look at the personalities. You have to look at kind of the profile of who they're reaching. But it is a challenge right now, and there's just no question about that. But buying a market and buying it the way you're talking about buying it in total saturation, to me, makes a ton of sense, as long as you get the right frequency alongside it. Over a long period of time, you're building that regardless. But I do think ultimately the ratings are a challenge for everybody these days, just because of declining ratings and the methodology itself.
So John, you touched on it as we kind of started this round, but circle back to you on that, the conversations that you're having with your clients related to measurement and this industry.
Yeah, what Gary said really nails it right on the head. It's just consistency. It's repetition. It's continuously putting that message out there on as many stations as you can in the market. Having one in the market of New York City or a Philadelphia, a large top 20 market, you're just not going to get enough reach, or let alone enough frequency to reach everybody in all those different genres. So one of my biggest points to any client is you need to be consistent. You need to buy into it, and you need to stick with it, because you might not see a result after the second or third week, but by week 10, 12, 14 weeks is really where you start to see that continuous messaging really hit home. And someone who may have heard it back in June might say, oh, wow, here it comes again here in September, where I just hear that same spot, or a little bit different. Maybe the offer changed a little bit, or the conversation, the tone of the spot changed a little bit, because we're always updating them, as you know. But, that's really how you continuously see success.
So Gary, you paint a picture of what the future looks like as you stick through your marketing campaign, as you go through the period of time that you identified. So what's the picture that you paint? What are you telling these clients?
2% of the people in every market are going to need an attorney. Not everybody wants Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury attorney. Your brand is different than theirs. So number one, be unique. Be who you are. You can't be someone else. Top Dog Law. He has the wildest commercials in America, and they're all over America. But you can't be him. You have to be you. Tell your story with intention. Reach as many people as possible. And we spoke about frequency. I run 249 units a week on a station, or we're not on the station.
That's some serious frequency, I agree. John, we need more of that from your clients. How's that sound?
I would love it. It would make my life a lot better as well.
One of the things that we're not talking about is creative. And ultimately, creative is what's going to drive the best results possible. And I think sometimes radio gets a bad rap because we'll take a national advertiser and working with maybe a very young group of people who are putting the creative together, and it misses the mark. and then radio doesn't work. And that's not the truth, right? If you don't have strong creative, then you're going to have a hard time getting results despite being on the #1 station or the #1 morning show. So I think creative plays a really significant role in the overall success of a campaign.
Plus endorsements. Let's talk about endorsements, which happen in the spoken word format. I had the great fortune of working with Neil Rogers in Miami for many years. And we would tell our prospective clients who wanted to bring something in to Neil to eat. We're going to stick with food, Chad, your favorite. And it was very simple. If you bring cold food in, you're going out of business. So if you're going to bring him something, he has to love it. And if he loves it, you're going to get the best endorsement you've ever gotten. And it'll continue on and on and on. But if you really listen today to local radio stations and the endorsements that are being done, most are not live anymore. Most. They're rip and reads. And the host and the client don't have the connection, in my opinion, that they had in the past. But we have the power to change that. How do we get the hosts out to see more people? How does programming and sales work better together for the betterment of the community and the advertiser? Because I think a lot of stations, unfortunately, lose sight of the fact that you are local to your community and your license is to do good for your community.
Relationships have been used a lot here, and I appreciate Chad's elevating creative, because it can't be just the last thought that happens inside that process. John, talk about your creative process with your brands that you represent. How important is that?
Yeah, I mean, creativity is what local radio is compared to a larger national scale type of marketing campaign. You know, I work in a lot of our clients are home improvement categories, so we'll air in 30 different markets across the country at once. And their offer's the same, the financing is the same, but we like to focus creativity on each market in terms of what's the weather looking like in that certain market at that time, you know, because California is going to be different than Philadelphia weather at any given month. So I think the creativity allows for that host hopefully still doing the live reads, because I love that, and I don't like when I see that they're doing recorded to sound live. You know, seeing RTSL is never as good as a true live one, because you get to focus on what's going on in local news in that market, what's going on with local weather, the sports teams. That's really going to connect to those listeners that tune in every morning for that exact reason.
Back to my guys in Indianapolis. Concrete repair, one of the hosts' front porch got redone this summer. One of the other hosts has new hair. And what was the...
Someone owns a T-Mobile.
yeah, something
works with T-Mobile.
But to your point, like I'm speaking as a listener, not as a broadcaster. Yeah, it absolutely matters. We're running short of time here. We're going to wrap up in about 8 minutes. I want to talk about assets, of deploying assets that we all have in the radio business. And again, Gary, when you say you buy everything, you buy everything. And what I mean by that is from the dash to the studio to, again, almost 300 commercials in a very specific time. Talk about the value of everything. And as a broadcaster, there is value in all of these places.
How you touch somebody so they will remember the advertiser matters. So yes, creative. We do, whether it's studio naming rights, back to the music, top of the hour news, we own that. And most markets we use the imaging director on our short form to tie in with the station. So all of a sudden, it's more believable than some attorney going, call me if you get in an accident, I'll get you $1 million. Well, okay, that's not going to happen. But if the listener loves your brand, they trust your brand, that voice, that imaging voice that you use matters, I want to associate with him. Now, on the other hand, What I'm not finding across the country is program directors that are taking ownership of these features that we're buying, because they should be changed every 60 days, 90 days, yet they're not. And it could stay up for a year or 2 years or 3 years, as much as we ask for it to be changed. Forward sell another show, another day part. It doesn't have to be monotonous, because when you run that many units, they have to be different. So we're running on our commercial schedules, not our features, 10 different commercials, all basically saying the same thing with a different line that a personal injury attorney might help somebody with, because we don't know what type of injury they're going to have. But understand that we can help you in all these different ways.
One of those assets that I want you to speak to is RDS. Something as simple as I look at my dash, there's the information. I don't want you to talk about the particular who's, but I want you to talk about the what. During the pandemic, there was some opportunities that were presented to some of the clients that you represented, and you dove right in, grabbed some real estate, some valuable real estate, and you've never given it up. Could you kind of walk us through that?
I found RDS by accident back in 2009, walking by my general manager's office, and I overheard a conversation, and I went out and sold it in Miami. And I was like, this is freaking cool. And as I opened up what I call a radio advocacy, we're not an agency, I'm a radio advocate. I have found that owning the dashboard is the beginning of the journey. And people take their radio with them wherever they can today. And it is radio. It is in the dashboard. That is the first place. If anybody talks about radio, they talk about car listening now. They don't talk about a stereo system in the house, which 3 of us did. You never did.
Probably not, no.
But, and I want to say this. Are you a baseball fan?
I am. I'm a Mets fan.
Okay, you're a Mets fan. So your father is closer to our age. What did your father listen to baseball on the radio on? What kind of device did he use?
Honestly, just the stereo in the car with AM radio, yeah.
Okay, he was in bed. How did he listen to it? What kind of device did he use to listen at night? He wasn't in the car at 10 o'clock at night, unless he was at the game.
Most likely, he's not the biggest baseball fan, but I'd say probably a TV.
Okay, I'm going to... This is the problem, guys.
Hey, he tried, right?
I tried.
I wish I could give you the better answer.
Okay, what type of radio did we use to listen to baseball games in our bed when we were supposed to be...
Transistor radio under a
radios.
pillow.
A transistor radio.
100%.
What is this?
Transistor radio.
It is a transistor radio. It is also a TV. It is anything you want it to be. You guys are in radio, and I'm sorry. I despise the word audio. It is radio. And they follow you on their device that they want to listen on it. Promote it as radio. Podcasting is different than streaming radio. Terrestrial radio and the stream, it is the same content. Call it what it is and be proud of what you do.
From the delivery, again, John, you didn't know, I knew what you were walking into there. But I think that is, speaking as an industry leader, it's one of the things that to me is very exciting that has happened because of technology, in that silos have been knocked down, walls have been knocked down. We now have access to our audience wherever, whenever, at whatever time and or place. And creating great content is the magic of this industry. It's the magic. And then connecting that magic to a marketer to create a relationship, to sell products and services. That's what we do every day. Chad?
I mean, we have a problem, with the big advertising agencies. A majority of the planners these days are in their early 20s. They don't even own a radio.
They think John's over.
Here in New York, they don't take cabs, they take mass transit. And when the planning starts to take place, radio really takes a back seat. They do know about streaming, but they don't think about through the terms of radio. So they could be listening to a station stream, or they could be listening to Spotify or Pandora, but that's just streaming to them. So that's a problem that we face every day, and it's really educating the agencies. And truth be told, is really getting to the clients. And that's where the rubber hits the road, because ultimately, when you've got somebody planning a campaign that knows nothing about your medium and how well it can work, how efficient it is, it makes it really challenging when these big advertisers are counting on the agencies to give them the best information possible to go to market.
Make an investment on this company called Amazon. They sell tabletop radios, like our old clock radios that we used to have next to our bed to wake us up. And send those to the key people that you guys are talking to in these big agencies and say, turn it on. You might actually be entertained. But they don't listen. I've got 4 kids, 21 to 32. The only time they listen to the radio is if they're with me, because I won't listen to the other sources. To this day, I have never turned on by myself Sirius XM.
Me either.
Is radio still cool, John?
I think so, yeah. I listen to it all the time when I specifically looking for sports news and listening to sports games when I'm in the car. That's my number one time I'm always listening to the radio.
And Gary, I'd offer this as a personal anecdote here to inject myself in the conversation. I have an 11-year-old granddaughter. Her name is Nora. And before I transitioned to the RAB, she would regularly do commercials on the radio station near the community that she lived. And she was the coolest kid in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade. Why? Because they could hear Nora on the radio. So there is hope, there is faith, and when Nora is cool, because she was doing 10 seconds of a commercial copy, it still matters. And it's going to matter for a very, very long time. All right, we've got 5 minutes to go. Last question down this row here. And again, we started in format. We went to a broader conversation, but I think it's relevant, certainly for today's discourse. But I want to know, John, as you serve your clients, because at the end of the day, we're all in the same business, right? We are all in the same business. Because at the end of the day, something good has to happen for someone who is paying us in that economic transaction. What keeps you up at night about what you do for your advertisers? What keeps you up at night?
Yeah, I think that word attribution, like you talked about, it is hard for what we do every single day on a radio side to prove out that this attribution works when a lot of it ends up going back to Google or a different medium or from social media or something along those lines. So that is one thing that it's part of our everyday work live, but it is one of the hardest hurdles for me to get over.
Gary, besides, do I have to build another closet for shirt 300 to 6?
What keeps me up at night is waking up every morning to read news that there were more changes at a local radio station and another show is being transitioned from 1 market to 12 markets to 20 markets, and they have no meaning in those markets whatsoever. But then again, I'm a local radio purist.
Chad?
I think I touched base on it, but I think it's, radio is still incredibly strong. The reach is real, and being able to see the right people and tell our story every day. But, I worry a lot about the attribution side of things because it is a little bit more challenging for radio, especially when you compare it to digital. You worry about the direction Nielsen's going, candidly, right? You worry a little bit about what Gary was just talking about, and that is transitioning from local and live to more syndicated type programming. There are still broadcasters out there that do believe in local and live and continue to invest in it. And you do see it, and you see the difference. But, I think the industry has a great future, and it's really a matter of us as an industry telling our story, getting to the right people, and proving it out. And I go back to what I said earlier. I mean, radio works. I know so many local advertisers that work with, on a local basis, because I did it for many years. For 18 years, I sold locally. And literally, the best attribution you could ever get is they come back and they buy another month. And then they buy another month. And they buy another month. And to me, that's ultimately where the rubber hits the road on how well radio actually works. So it's really getting out there and sharing the gospel.
Well, please join me in thanking our panelists. Guys, thank you very, very much.